Can you guys introduce Mommy?
Spill the beans with Dr. Jill.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for Spill the Beans with Dr. Jill. We have another amazing guest today. This particular guest is very special, though. She was my editor for my dissertation. So when I thought of individuals that could speak about my research and really express what vicarious trauma is, I thought no better than this person. Would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Thank you. Good. Hello, I'm Jennifer Wegner. I live in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. My current role is serving as Assistant Dean of Undergraduate Programs in the Tepper School of Business at Carnegie Mellon University. And Jill, I was trying to remember how many years we have known each other.
Hmm.
And I think at this point it's 10, if not 10, it's very close to 10 years, professional connections, and then developed a good friendship thereafter. So I'm grateful for the chance to chat with you.
And she is an NEC alum. Do
Yes,
you want to
classic.
share what your dissertation was on, what your research was on?
Yeah, so my background is in student affairs. I have an academic affairs position right now, but my heart is in student affairs. And so I worked with Dr. Gavin Henning, and my research looked at the professional development experiences of women chief student affairs officers. So it was a grounded theory um, research process and had the chance to interview 10 phenomenal cisgender women leaders across the Midwest and Northeast, down the Atlantic coast, and kind of took some really powerful lessons from the experiences that they had that helped them achieve the position of leadership that they held on their campus. And it indulged my interest and commitment to advancing women in academia and to better understand professional development experiences and how we can invest in those experiences for our staffs, our communities, and more broadly in our professions.
Amazing. So before I handed you a large document to start editing, had you ever heard of vicarious trauma? Were you aware of it? And if so, what did that look like? And if not, what was something that you learned after reading about it?
My gosh, I I knew about it, but through more maybe medical or social work. And it wasn't anything, it was no formal knowledge. It was either friends who are in those fields, or to be quite truthful, probably watching the occasional episode of ER. And I realize I just dated myself, Grey's Anatomy, other medical shows, or kind of shows where traditional helper professions are highlighted in the ways in which we carry those stories. Yeah, and so for me, what I really appreciate about your research, both then and ongoing, is how do we take take that knowledge base and apply it in higher education. I work with a group of academic advisors and oversee and support their growth as professionals in the field. And I am aware every day the stories that they hear from our students and the ways in which they carry those experiences with them. And while I know your work centered in the Title IX space, and maybe I'm jumping ahead in the questions, Jill, but what I have appreciated is the ways in which students trust us, those of us in the academy, and you never know who they're going to engage with, and it isn't always the folks in Title IX. Hopefully, it is, but it might not be. And so, giving space for colleagues and professionals across campus. To honor what they hear and to also not necessarily process, but to hold space for it in their work, I think is really important.
And I did a workshop for your team
Mhm.
and we designed it, correct me if I'm wrong, because it was a little while ago now, over a
Yeah.
year, right? So we thought it would be really helpful for your team to receive the foundations of vicarious trauma and the tools. And then we built in an extra day for processing
Mhm.
where we came back and kind of went through now that they've had time to sit in the information and what questions and follow-ups.
Yeah.
Did you have any reflections about that process that you remember? I know it was a while ago now.
Yeah. No, I think it's probably one of the most meaningful professional development experiences that my team has had. Obviously, giving my research, we spend a lot of time in professional development for our
Yeah.
team. Um, but what I appreciated about it is that you were willing to kind of do part two with us, right? It was
Mhm.
important to have the language, and it was important to for my team members to identify what resonated most with them, what I'm going to use the word techniques
Mhm.
that you offered as options and instructional opportunities resonated most with them. And then that opportunity to come back, I think it was, gosh, maybe 3 weeks later, it was a couple of weeks, right? To
Mhm.
say, now that you've had this, like as this is in your mind, as you engage with students and with each other, what is what keeps coming up for you? What are you employing? And that was really helpful for the team. And I know that some of the, again, techniques or habits that you suggested are still in practice with the team today. And I think that isn't true for all of the professional development experiences or conversations that we have. And
Right.
um, again, I think for me, I keep coming back to the word honor, because I think that's a lot of what your research does, is it honors the experiences that those of us in the academy have with with students, and again with colleagues, but through a student lens, in a way that, I don't know, constant emails and the to-do lists and all of the administrative tasks necessary, and they are necessary things every day,
Yeah.
but we don't always honor the stories that we receive. And so that was really powerful for our team.
I felt a great sense of appreciation, not just for like the data and the normalization that I'm giving them, the language that I'm giving them. Like, yes, they loved all of that, but they really appreciated that your organization said this is an important value. This is something we want to invest in you. And I think that because they are advisors, the position itself has changed dramatically, right? Like we always joke about higher ed that we're kind of like guidance counselors and then we morph into like these other disciplines as well, but that advisement has really become an area where students can really open up about any part of their life. And that was not how it was, 15 years ago. You just went, picked out your classes, and then you left. But these
Very
are really like
transactional.
high touch points where these colleagues of ours are hearing these stories, and some of them feel really uncomfortable. Like that's not what they signed up for. And your team really processed a lot of their feelings of appreciation, which I think was really important for me as a trainer. Um, when I mean, you made a really intentional decision to have me come in and, do this for your team. What do you think others need to know when making that decision?
That's a great question. Um, For me, it was important in making this decision to keep in mind a couple of things. One is, while the majority of my team do academic advising, I also wanted this experience to be relevant for our administrative coordinator, who is often the one in the office greeting students as they come in for appointments. And she can she reads a lot, right? From body language. Some students will come in and just say everything in an open space and you're like, oh my gosh, like she is shepherding them to a more private location or whatever that might be. And so thinking about, yes, some of us have a day filled with 7 student appointments where we're hearing things back to back, and others are engaging and supporting students as an administrative coordinator or director of operations or whatever that might be. And so asking you to think about creating content that was accessible for everyone on our team, independent of position, was really important to me because what I know to be true, and I think this is true for so many of us in the academy, is students don't care what your position is
Right.
when they are choosing to tell you something. I believe they are choosing to tell you something because you have built a relationship on trust,
Hmm.
or they intuitively sense that they can trust you in receiving this information. And some of what I think students share, they it is their lived experience and they may see it as trauma or they may just see it as their lived experience without adhering the word trauma to it. And so the way in which they share may not seem like a big thing to them, if that makes sense. And so asking you to create something that was accessible for our team, again, was really important. And recognizing that I was sure that the team would resonate with what you were sharing, but that what you offered our team, and it's certainly something we continue to use in different ways, is the language
Hmm.
around vicarious trauma. And that was really important because it gave um, maybe certainty to some of
Hmm.
those kind of those gut feelings that we have, or after a student appointment, kind of needing to, I don't want to say shake it off, but like get out and kind of physically express what you might be feeling or carrying. And um, the legitimacy of your research, I think, was reassuring for the team.
Something that comes up a lot is like the validation,
Mhm.
that they were really appreciating that as well. So tell me, how are you nurturing your vicarious trauma these days?
As a supervisor or myself
That's
as an
such a good question because that's something we talk about in the training is that like there's many levels of how. So for whichever you pick, however you want to share.
um my work means I see less individual students than my team does in my position. And so I think I probably think about vicarious trauma more so as a supervisor right now. Um, and I think about it in terms of caring for my team, right? And um, there are busy stretches of academic advising or academic operations. And so, how, even in those moments, do I remind our team of this work, right? Because sometimes if it's not, we know it, but if we're not thinking about it every day, it can be slip a little bit further down the memory. Um, also, right. It's like so much of the other important work we do, right? Like it is okay to name it
Mhm.
and to call it out, right? It's not as though if I say, I don't necessarily say like, tell me about the vicarious trauma you're carrying today, right? But like being explicit in what you just summarized for me about what the student is navigating and what they've told you must have been really challenging to hear and receive. How are you doing in this space? Um, what are you doing to take care of yourself? What are the resources you may want to access? Um, and that's something really important to me. The other thing, and gosh, maybe this is a request for ongoing research and facilitation, Jill, would be how do we, right, in my role as assistant dean, there are times in which what a student has shared with their advisor
Mhm.
impacts our understanding of how they have navigated their academic experience in a semester. And we don't want to ask the student to necessarily reshare that information. The advisor has to somehow share that information with me. And I think they hold a lot of, I know that my team holds that as a critical responsibility
Mhm.
to share that forward. And it is not like I want to be clear, it is not gratuitous, but if a student is doing really, really well, and then halfway through the semester, they stop going to class, they've disengaged, their grades are falling, it is helpful for us to begin to understand what may have um, occurred for them that informs kind of a radical change in their academic behavior so that we can support them and help them navigate that. I worry sometimes that I don't always do my best in supporting my team as I ask them to share those experiences again.
Right.
So perhaps that's a request for future conversation, but that's something I've been thinking a lot about as a supervisor. And yeah, just kind of continually supporting our students and supporting the students or supporting my colleagues who are um, often the first to receive that email or to get a call from the Office of Student Support Resources to say, all right, here's what we need to share with you about what this student is navigating.
Is there any projects or special items that you're working on that you would like to plug or discuss?
Oh, thank you. I would say one of the things that I wish it was in the form of a project, I will take this as impetus to think more deeply about that this summer. Um, I started, as I shared, in student affairs. I have spent the last almost 16 years of my career in academic units, in the last 7 years leading academic units. And one of the things I think often happens in higher education preparation programs is kind of the talk of maybe the divide in the academy between student affairs and academic affairs. And I have navigated my career in both of those spaces. And one of the things that I keep kind of coming back to is kind of the work recently around student success
Mhm.
and really thinking about student success as the mission of the educational experience in higher ed has helped me think differently and much less about the student affairs and academic affairs and how do we bridge those. The bridge is student success.
Mhm.
And for me, that's uh, been really, I'm gonna use the word kind of a fun space to be in and to
Mhm.
challenge my own training, challenge my way of thinking, challenge my team's way of thinking. I have folks on my team who are very new in their higher ed careers and folks who have, recently celebrated 32 years in higher education, right? And so really grounding our work in student success. And fortunately, there's some good work coming kind of at national levels in the US about what student success can be and how we measure it and what that looks like. But that's been, that's when I step back from the day to day, those are the conversations that I'm really interested in right now.
It's so interesting because I've been ending the series asking each of the participants if they had to say one word or one phrase to spill the beans, what would it be? And it kind of defaulted to student success. But I don't want to slight you if you had another word or phrase that you wanted to select to spill the beans, but what would it be?
Oh my gosh. No, I love it. I think it is student success.
Mhm.
what I like about that is that it is not about how I define success for a student. It
Mm.
is about how the student defines success for themselves. And I believe education has the power to transform. Um, and that's why I got into the work and why I stay in the work. And a student identifying for themselves what the transformation it is that they want. Oh my gosh, what a powerful thing to get to witness. Like that that brings joy when some of the days are a little bit harder than others.
And I appreciate that you introduced me to your team and allowed me to support those that are doing such great work, because obviously it's my research area, but it's my passion to be able to help the colleagues doing the work and to pause and reflect on them as they're supporting others. So it
Yeah.
definitely is a way to, um, push it forward and pass along that positive energy. So thank you for giving me that space and joining us today.
Thank you.
It was such a great conversation, and I'm sure that everyone listening and watching will be more aware of when they see that phrase student success and will be mindful of our conversation. So thank you again, Jen. It was so
Thank you
nice to
so
see you.
much. Take care, Jill.
Bye-bye. Hi, everyone. I wanted to come back and talk to you a little bit about my conversation with Dr. Jen and give you some more information, as I have been with all these types of videos. So, if you noticed, I did a single model shot for this one, mainly because I felt like Dr. Jen had a lot of insight regarding the topic of vicarious trauma that can help you and lessons that she learned from the workshops that I was able to do. So, a couple things. The first thing is that I have since now launched, I think this is maybe the fifth video for Spill the Beans. Um, and I am receiving some emails of inquiry. So I thought it'd be fun for me to answer some of those here in case the readers are also thinking those kinds of questions. So, the first email that I received asked about professional development, and it tied into the conversation I had just had with Jen. So I think that this is full circle. So what can you do if you believe that the organization that you work for will not to consider professional development, such as the workshop that you provide? I saw you at NASPA, and I would really love to have you come to my campus, but I don't think that my leadership will allow it and make an excuse a budget. So that was the email that I got. So thank you, first of all, for seeing me at NASPA. It's a great organization. I'm so glad that you were able to connect. Second of all, I get this question a lot, and so I would want to offer some ideas. The first idea is that unless you're afraid of some kind of bizarre retaliation where your organization is so hostile that new ideas are just completely frowned upon, there are tons of evaluations or spaces that I have been asked, like what kind of professional development I would want from my supervisor. So maybe that's where you assert this idea of, oh, I saw someone that teaches about vicarious trauma or whatever workshop that you're looking to bring into your organization and drop it that way. The other thing is that, writing a proposal to specifically talk about the lived experience of you and your colleagues and why a workshop like mine would benefit you, is something really helpful, I think, for leadership because they can't really just say no when it's in black and white. They at least need to give you a reason. The third thing is that for the budget, I'm relatively reasonable with the budget. Like I've done workshops, so not everybody has the funding that like Carnegie Mellon, Dr. Jen was able to budget and workshop for months to be able to support having me not come in once but twice. So, and I understand that not everybody has that kind of support. Luckily, Dr. Jen's whole background is in professional development, so she already has a lot of political support. So my suggestion would be to workshop with me specifically about what are you looking for? Are you looking for a virtual session? Is it an hour long? Is it 2 hours long? How far away are you from me? And we can make something happen. The third thing that I will say about this, or maybe the fourth thing, I'm losing count now, is that I do work with clients individually. So if you are someone that is working for an organization that you do not think will financially support this, I say try it because you never know. Push it in black and white, And then third thing, reach out to me so that we can possibly do some one-on-one consulting because I wouldn't want you to be at an institution that doesn't support large programming for professional development because I can do that one-on-one with you. So rest assured, I am here to support you. The second thing that I had gotten questioned was about traveling. Do I travel? And the answer is yes. As I've shared pretty transparently with you all, I work for the state and I have two toddlers. So, of course, I don't want to be traveling every day, and I can't because that's not the commitment that I've made to my full-time position. But yes, I can definitely travel and plan, a year, 2 years in advance if need be. So, I don't want those to be limitations of why you don't consider having me come in to do a workshop for you. If there is a need, we will figure it out. So there, I hope that that has rest assured some of the questions that I'm receiving. I hope that this particular session was helpful to you for all the academic advising individuals, those that are not in student affairs, outside of student affairs, maybe they're still in Title IX and they don't really fall into student affairs or academic affairs. This session was for you to hear the validation, to hear the shared stories, for you to have some language and to be reassured that there are tools that we can provide you for you to be successful in your position beyond how to do your position, but how to genuinely enjoy it with the idea of student success underlining it. So thank you so much. See you soon. Bye.